West Virginia governor gives update on the guardsman injured in the D.C. shooting. As most of you know, a young woman was murdered by what we believe to be an Islamic terrorist as of now. The reporting is that this man yelled Allahu Akbar, brought a revolver, shot a young woman in the head, I believe in the head, killing her, and then opened fire on another young man. These individuals, I believe this particular individual, this is Andrew Wolf. He's a local here. This is U.S. Air Force Staff Sergeant Andrew Wolf. He remains in serious condition after being shot while deployed to D.C. as part of Donald Trump's federalized crime-fighting initiative. Governor Morrisey said Wolf responded to a nurse's question with a thumbs up and was able to wiggle his toes, signals that he said offered hope for his recovery. I can also offer as a bit of just, I suppose it's local hearsay, but for those that aren't familiar, I don't know about Sarah Beckstrom. I believe that she was actually from Central West Virginia. Rest in peace. My condolences to the family. This is a nightmarish scenario. I don't know if she was stationed out here. I believe she may have been with the Air Guard. This is Air Guard, U.S. Army Specialist Sarah Beckstrom. But I do know that Andrew Wolf was a local right by us. We're in the eastern panhandle of West Virginia. It's about an hour and a half from D.C. And someone came up to me over the break, I think on this weekend, and thanked me and said, "You look, just for all of us in the community, thank you." And I said, "No, don't look. I'm just a guy on the internet. I hope you guys are doing all right." But I was told by them that Sergeant Wolf is doing well. And they said he's responsive and they think he's going to recover. I hope that's true. And I'm glad to hear it. I'm sorry to hear about Sarah Beckstrom. But this is the result of Democrat policy. Bringing in unvetted illegal immigrants and Afghanis. Trump says he's suspending all asylum claims from Afghanistan now. This should never have happened. And what's sickening is that the response from liberals and Democrats was that it's the fault of Trump for deploying the National Guard, which is stupid because the National Guard get deployed for patrol in America. The problem is an Afghan national who hates this country decided to go murder some National Guard. And I also find it strange that it happened just after Democrats claimed that these were fascist, dictatorial, despot moves, that the National Guard were moments away from shooting and killing American citizens. So now you have somebody from Afghanistan. They're not an American. They're brought here on this program. I guess it was reported he overstayed his visa. I'm not entirely sure. And then you have this narrative emerge from Democrats that the National Guard are Trump's Gestapo, his fascist force. And so this is what happens.
The thing that I kind of picked up from the whole response from Democrats, it reminds me of back in the day when people used to say, well, she wouldn't have been raped if she hadn't been wearing that short skirt or if she hadn't gotten drunk. It's the fault of the person that carries out the action. It's not Donald Trump's fault for putting the National Guard in D.C. It's not the National Guardsman's fault for joining the National Guard and supporting a tyrant or what have you. It's the fault of the shooter. It's always the fault of the person that carries out the attack. And it doesn't matter the context surrounding it.
Have you looked into this guy's history? It's pretty
I know that
grim.
I know that he was a CIA asset, and he was actually involved in kinetic action in Afghanistan.
I mean, from the reporting I've seen, it was when he was 15, he was recruited into one of these death squads put together by the CIA, and worked for a very long time with them, doing a lot of killing allegedly. And it's not the only story like that. I think it was a few years ago, Jamal Wali in Fairfax, Virginia, another guy who was a translator, Afghani translator who came here on a similar to the Operation Allies Welcome, which is how this guy got here, who shot 2 cops, and just wigged out. I don't know, what's really going on behind it, but it is weird to me. Their connections to the CIA.
Yeah, he was a collaborator with Americans who fought against the Taliban.
Yeah.
I'm reading here that he entered the United States under a program that offered special immigration protections to Afghans who had worked with the U.S. forces in Afghanistan. This is in the wake of the troop withdrawal in 2021. I saw in the Wall Street Journal, too, it sort of raises the question of, does the United States have any obligation to those who choose to collaborate with them in these war zones? And then if we don't help these people, will we have future people to collaborate with when we do go to war in the future? The consequences of bringing those people over here, obviously, is something we have to deal with. People question whether or not it's radical Islam that drove this man or just mental instability on the heels of, what he had to do in Afghanistan Afghanistan, or, his inability to assimilate in the United States. I've read reporting that he refused or struggled to learn English. He allegedly had 5 sons who he could not care for, and allegedly, like, the education system was concerned about him through his children because they were in such poor care. So there are allegedly a handful of red flags. Also, community members were concerned about this man, but it seemed as though he was really struggling to assimilate, and this guy was off the wagon, and there were some signs, and it's really unfortunate that this is how we have to find out that this guy's going through, whatever scenario. And I think it has many Americans asking themselves, though, what if we just didn't bring people like this into the country?
Yeah, I remember back right after 9/11, one of the things that I saw people talking about on the news a lot is there was a lack of human intelligence in Afghanistan. So there wasn't a lot of assets that the United States has. We didn't have the ability to reach out to locals and say, hey, help us find this person, help us do this, help us do that. And they had to build it. And arguably, that is something that the government or that the federal government needs. Especially if you're going to deal with hostile nations, you want to have people inside that will talk to you. And we didn't have it, and so we had to build up an entire infrastructure after 9/11 to try to, do whatever it was that the government wanted to do in Afghanistan. So this is one of the problems that arises from that is what do you do with those people that are literally turncoats on their own, their own country? Do you bring them back to the United States? If you do you monitor them? I think that it's reasonable that if people come to the United States from a foreign country that were assets for the CIA, I think it's perfectly reasonable to have handlers that check in on them and see what their life is like.
How weird do you think it is? It wasn't Slotkin former CIA?
I believe so, but I can't say for sure.
And that video that she had, it called on intelligence officers and military. I don't think it was just the military, right?
I think so.
When they said defy illegal orders.
Specifically, yeah.
And then this guy was a CIA asset. He had worked with the U.S. while it, involved in Afghanistan. Mm-hmm. It's the old saying, there are no coincidences.
I just, as somebody who lived in a Muslim country, and I was married to a Muslim for a very long time, and I think the question needs to be asked, and I don't know that how many people are actually asking it, is Islam compatible with living in our country? I mean, I absolutely know Muslims that live here and have assimilated and adopted the culture, but I'd say that's the exception rather than the rule.
I think that's true of literally anyone everywhere. We have Chinatown for a reason.
I'm not talking about just we have our area and our.
It's not about area. It's about
practices.
the reason Chinatown exists is because people live near each other and they don't give up their culture. It doesn't matter where you are from. It doesn't matter what religion you follow. When you move to another country, as Phil was mentioning earlier, that doesn't change when you set foot in a new space.
This is true, but there are some shared values. And I will say in the Islamic world, there's a lot more radical Islamists than there would be, say, radical Christians, radical of other religions. And I'm not talking about just wanting to be within your own neighborhood and as you use the example of Chinatown.
The example of Chinatown was specifically that you have an area in New York, in LA, in Chicago, not because people live next to each other, but because their culture persists.
Right.
When a person from China moves to the United States, they don't say, I'm going to go eat a hot dog and watch baseball. They say, I'm going to speak Mandarin or Cantonese, largely Mandarin, and I'm going to use signs in Mandarin. It's easier to then live next to someone who does these things, and then you end up with areas of cities that are entirely Chinese influence.
There's definitely an argument to be made. Do we want to do that? Do we want to continue to import people that don't want to be part of the melting pot? But I'm going to say that Islam has a larger problem where they do not put the same value on human life, and not just human life, but people in the Islamic fundamentalism. They do not believe that, let's say, an American woman is an actual human. There's another term for it. I can't remember the Arabic term for it. They would say that a woman is. I'm not sure what I can say. They treat them like an animal versus a human being.
Yeah.
I think it is reasonable to say that while I agree with you, Tim, the way that different groups, ethnic groups or whatever, they move to the country and they will live around each other. I think it's also fair to say that certain cultures that's acceptable and certain cultures that won't work with, right? Like, so Chinatown, there's a bunch of Chinatowns all over the country, and it's hasn't been any kind of disruptive factor in the United States.
Correct. Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.